Hello, Jill.
Hi,
My name's Dion,
I'm Jason.
and I am. Well, we've been emailing a little bit, sort of, kind of. This is Jason, who is Joy's brother, and obviously, I am his wife and Joy's sister-in-law. So we homeschool our kids, and we are always kind of excited to talk to people about homeschooling, because homeschooling is what we do, and we've come to believe in it, even though it's been really hard in some ways.
And we love having the opportunity to actually share in the homeschooling journey with other people.
Yeah. So we have had the blessing of recently talking to some people just as the school year is approaching about what homeschooling looks like and, just some aspects of it. So we wanted to just take the time to do the same thing for you. So this is some of the layout that Jason used to share some information about homeschooling. So we're going to talk about these. Before I get into that, what I want to do is just talk about some of the things that might be available for you in Ohio. If you go to that one website, HSLDA, they'll show you the restrictions that you might have in Ohio in terms of what things you need to do to share with the school district that you're in about your desire to homeschool. And it may not have it won't have as I know Ohio is not as strict as Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is kind of strict. So that's one thing that you need to go ahead and investigate and check out. The other thing is I want you to consider, we're not considering in homeschooling right now the ideas of like cyber school or anything to do with curriculum that's guided through your school district. So we're not talking about that in this particular slide model. So I just wanted to put that out there. And cyber school is definitely a valuable thing. Some parents really like that because it takes having to search for curriculum out of your hands, and you can just guide your student.
So one thing that you might want to consider is that since a lot of people are doing their schooling at home this year, your district might have some resources and some options for home education.
Yeah.
This isn't traditional homeschooling. This is at-home learning or distance learning that districts are providing for their students who would normally be in school, but because of the pandemic, they're not able to be so.
Exactly.
So, in other words, this is a good opportunity for you to test out what homeschooling could be while using some of the resources that your school district might have for you.
Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about these different approaches, and we're also going to talk about the social piece, because I think that was something that you brought up, talking about your preschooler being a bit shy and what we would do. I guess we could, let's go ahead and get into this since we're on the slide.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with DeSchooling. Let's see if I can get it to open up. So DeSchooling is, I don't know if it's a major term, but it's a term that you can read this. I'm not going to read to you. So you can kind of use it as a noun, as you see there, or as a verb. And Jason and I kind of prefer the verb form of it, or we think about it in the verb form, the transitioning from the traditional schooling mindset to a less institutional one. And for me personally, I've been a classroom teacher for over 17 years. And when I first started homeschooling with the kids, or when our kids first began being homeschooled, Jason did it and I was teaching in a school. Jason would teach at night. And so what would happen is I would come home and I would think about all the things that the kids at school were doing, and I would try to pile it on my children at home. And so it was really, I was trying to recreate what would happen in school in my house. And I have to be honest with you, for our family at least, and believe me, everything I say is just for our family. You're going to create the school in your house that works for you and your child. So this is just what works for us. For our family, that did not work. And it caused me to get to a place where I realized that what happens in school works for school, because school is a particular institution that requires order and organization of large numbers of children at a particular time in a small setting, or in a large setting rather. And that is not what happens in my house. I can do different in my house. Jason, what do you think about these schools?
I think the big takeaway is that you don't have to recreate what a school day looks like in your own home. You don't have to do you don't have to try and copy what you went through when you were going to school for your child to have a spectacular education. Part of what DeSchooling is getting the framework of school out of our minds so we can be open to creating the thing that works best for our children. You are going to be the best educator for your daughter because you know her.
The best.
You know what she needs.
Absolutely.
And so
don't forget that.
Just keep in mind that if you just put things in front of her based on what you see the need being, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. And DeSchooling is just a term to help parents who are becoming teachers begin to understand that they themselves are adequate and can build a school in their own homes that works for their student, for their kids. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to try to recreate what you did in kindergarten, what you did in first grade.
Or what you see other people doing. Just in a phrase, you were born for this opportunity to take care of this child's education. So the next one that we have is unschooling, which is an approach that you might see that people talk about when they talk about homeschool, particularly in the media. You will see, I remember I was introduced to unschooling as Billy doesn't want to read. He doesn't have to read. Billy's 10 years old and doesn't read yet. This family chooses to unschool, allowing Billy to decide what he wants to do in his curriculum. And that is not completely what unschooling is. Unschooling is allowing your child to lead what it is they are interested in, an exploration of information, as opposed to you giving them a specific curriculum.
Another way of thinking about unschooling is that unschooling is a student-directed curriculum, meaning that the student decides what it is that they want to learn, and they base their investigations and their learnings on that. Now, your daughter's pretty young, so she's not really in a place to decide what it is that she wants to do. But I think one of the important lessons in unschooling is, follow her passions. If she has a passion around something, that's a lesson that you can organize around, right? If it seems like she's really gravitating, for example, towards toy ponies, well, she can learn how to spell ponies. She can watch shows about ponies. She can color ponies. She can build all those skills that you want to teach her through her interests and through her passions. So I think that might be really helpful for you as well.
Also, not necessarily under either of those ideas, there's kind of a traditional homeschool model. Why am I not?
Right. So
I'm not doing good with this. Help me get there.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
So, a couple of things. First, DeSchooling, unschooling are ideas around homeschooling, right? But what we want to show you now in these colored balloons here is we want to show you some of the approaches or the structures that people use to teach homeschool. Like, how do they pattern or how do they organize their homeschools? So we want to show you some of the different ways that people organize their homeschools. So we'll start with the traditional ways in which people organize their homeschool. And when we talk about traditional, we mean the style from homeschoolers who align their approach with an educational model that they're familiar with or an educational model that they really like. So some of the examples of traditional homeschool are unit studies, where you pick a theme and then you arrange most of the subjects that the student will learn around that theme. So, for example, you could have, for older students, the theme might be global warming. And so they would study the history of global warming, and they would write an essay around global warming. They would study the science, and they would do math around it, right? There are also other approaches that are also tied to schools, like the Charlotte Mason approach. Montessori approach is also in homeschools. I'm sure you've heard of Montessori schools, and even the Waldorf approach. So those are some traditional approaches. There's also something called the classical approach.
I'll get there.
Just keep tapping. Keep tapping
the arrow. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm learning here. Learning.
So we have the classical approach, and the classical approach is really based on the Renaissance characterization of ancient antiquity and classical works. So it's based on that model, and it focuses a lot on grammar and logic and rhetoric, which is the art of persuasion. Also focuses on things like Latin and those classic Greek and those classic works of of antiquities.
Homer,
Yeah,
the
Homer,
Odyssey.
the Iliad, the works of Plato, the works of Aristotle, those kinds of things. So there are lots of homeschool groups that work off of that model. But of course, that's not the only model you have. You also have cultural models for homeschool. So you'll find lots of homeschool groups that are arranged around, can you go back one? Arranged around some aspect of identity. And this is where you're going to find like your religious homeschool groups, or your homeschool groups that are based around an ethnic identity. So you'll find groups like, or you'll find curriculum like The Good and the Beautiful, which is a Christian.
I said that to her.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
So you have The Good and the Beautiful, which is actually a Christian curriculum for homeschoolers. There's the Kamali Academy, which is an Afrocentric curriculum and group that does homeschooling, which is really good. And then you even have groups like Woke Homeschooling, which is both Christian and Afrocentric. So there's lots of approaches and lots of materials that you can use for homeschooling. So please find a group that can help you do that. Also, most homeschoolers are what we call eclectic, meaning that they take a little bit from everywhere. They mix and match different homeschool resources and techniques and approaches to come up with their own personalized approach. And what you're going to find is that you are free to take and use whatever works, right? So at this point, I want to encourage you to do a couple of things. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do is find a Facebook group for homeschoolers in Ohio, so that you can get some ideas as to what other people are doing in your state, even in your district.
Yeah.
You'll get ideas about what preschoolers are doing. You'll get ideas about how to meet your specific situation. Hey, we just grew. So in addition to getting connected with a homeschooling group on Facebook, which is a wonderful resource. The second thing that I would advise that you do is to decide just for yourself. This isn't for anybody else. This is just for you. Decide, and you write this down. Decide what things you would like to do with your daughter. What things would you like your daughter to learn? And just make a quick list, because that can help you. And that will help you narrow your focus when it comes to looking for resources. Whether you're looking for resources online by just doing a Google search, it'll help direct you to figure out what questions you can ask people in the Facebook group. And it can also help you to have a more informed discussion with your school district about what's best for you. And that's going to be my third suggestion. Contact your school district to see what options are available for at-home learning for your preschooler. Because of the pandemic, there may be space for you to kind of have a hybrid learning experience for your daughter, where she's participating in virtual kindergarten or virtual preschool, while the rest of the time she's with you doing some of the creative things that you might have planned for. But you don't know what options are available unless you actually talk to your district. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is the desire to have that social interaction. And as homeschoolers, we find that social interaction really, really important. And we do homeschool co-ops and things of that nature. But with the pandemic, everybody is going to be suffering with social interaction. Nobody's going to be having it the same way that they have in the past. So having virtual preschool or virtual kindergarten from your district might be the way to get that social interaction that you're desiring.
Okay, and just one last thing before we go. Just be confident in what you're doing. You do know your child the best. Looking for other people is a great way of just connecting people who are close by, and being able to maintain some of the social interactions that she does have, even if it's through Zoom, even if it's just friends that she usually sees, is a nice way to just do that during this particular time. Listen, if you want to talk to us some more or talk to us live, we would love to do so. It has been a pleasure. Sorry for the wiggly kids. We look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.
Enjoy your time, Jim.